This is the Fractal AM4. It's Fractal's entry level, if you want to call it that, amp modeling and effects unit. If you have wanted to dip your toes into the Fractal modeling universe just to see what it's all about, this is the unit for you. I'm going to warn you though, you might get ready to want to spend more on something like an Axe-FX3 or an FM9 after experiencing this, because this thing is fantastic and the sounds that are in here are unreal. I mean, it's all the Fractal modeling sounds, which we think are top tier when it comes to digital amp and effects modeling. So in this video, Sean and I are going to show you a variety of tones that we have dialed in. We have presets available for the AM4. I'm slowly integrating this into our line of tone match presets. All of that's going to be linked below. There's some free stuff down there you can just grab if you want. There are some awesome factory presets on this unit, and then we're going to get into how this thing works and what you can do with it. Hey, before we go any further, I'd love to ask you to subscribe to the channel. YouTube analytics tells us that most of you watching are not subscribed. So take this opportunity and seize it and click the subscribe button. And if you click the bell icon as well, you get notified for new uploads whenever they come up from us. Thank you. Back to the video. A few things right off the top. You can see right here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. So this unit is limited to 4 effects blocks. And in this preset, this is based on my 1994 Matchless C30 preset. You can see there's a drive block, there is an amp block, there's a delay block, and there is a reverb block. So those are my 4 blocks. You might wonder, where is your cab? The cab is actually part of the amp block, and you can load IRs in that as well. So it's pretty versatile in that respect. You can do a lot with just 4 blocks, and the reason you can do so much, and I'll demonstrate this a bit later when we get into like the software and how you can build out presets. The reason you can do so much with just 4 blocks is each of these blocks has 4 channels. So if you're familiar with the way Fractal does their stuff, you'll know this off the bat. But like in the amp block, there are 4 channels. You can have 4 completely different amps. Same with drive. You can have 4 totally different drives. In fact, let me demonstrate. This went blue because I just went into effects mode. We'll talk about the modes in a bit. Here are my 4 drive blocks, and then you can choose between them. So in block A, I've got the Tone of Kings drive, which is a Analog Man King of Tone. In block B, a Maxon 808 Tube Screamers type drive. In block C is the OCD distortion. In block D is a Sir Riot. So sort of, it goes 4 levels, like low gain, mid gain, and then 2 flavors of distortion. You can just pick the one you want, and it's on. And there you go. You can turn it on and turn it off here. So within each block, for the reverb, for example, I've got a small room reverb. I've got an Ice Castle reverb, which is huge. Then I've got 2 sort of like, they call them SFX, sound effect type reverbs, using the Pallades reverb. It's just huge and ethereal. You'll hear it in this demo. I demoed it in one of the playing bits. So you know, you can get a lot of different sounds from a single block. You can't run multiple channels at the same time, but you get 4 very different sounding reverbs. One other thing with these channels is in the reverb, for example, it's only reverb. You can't have channel A be a reverb and channel B be like a modulation or something like that. A lot of versatility with what you can do with the blocks, and you can really deep dive. Some of them have hidden features, like the amp block has 2 different places where you can boost. So you can kind of have a drive built into the amp block as well as another drive. I want to quickly show you how you can navigate the unit. And all this stuff so far has been just with the unit. And I wanted to do this on purpose because one of the things people say about Fractal units is that they're so complex, they do so much, that they can be very difficult to use. I have been a Fractal user for years and years. The XFX3 I used as my main unit for probably 5 or 6 years, week in, week out, playing at church every weekend almost. I say used to use it as my main unit. I still do, but these days I'm playing something different almost every weekend. So I still use the XFX3 a lot. I love it. But a common criticism that I hear regarding FM9, FM3, XFX3 is it's very difficult to edit stuff from the unit. So I'm going to show you how to edit all of these things right here on the unit to show you how easy it is. So the first thing you can do is go into different modes. So this unit has 4 different modes. You've got presets mode where these buttons will select the presets. You've got scenes mode where these buttons will jump between one of 4 scenes, which are kind of like presets within a preset. You've got effects mode where you can turn the individual blocks on and off and then select channels within those blocks. And then you've got the tuner mode, which also has your tap tempo. So one at a time. In presets mode, now you've got green buttons and they select between the presets, right? So we were on this 94 Match C30 preset. That's preset mode. Then you've got scenes mode. We are now going to jump between the 4 scenes that are available in this preset. Again, all these presets are going to be linked below. So you can see, let's select another scene. Scene 1 is clean, scene 2 is drive, scene 3 is lead, scene 4 is ambient, and it's all these scenes are switching, turning things on and off in the preset. And then you can see here we've switched channels. We're in channel C on the delay block and B on the reverb block. So that is scenes mode in a nutshell. All right, effects mode gives you access to the 4 effects blocks. So we've got the drive block. The amp block, when you punch it, by default, it turns an output boost on. All right, so it gives you a level boost like for a solo. The delay block turns on and off, the reverb block turns on and off. If you press and hold any of these, you then have access to the 4 channels within that block, which you can select here and then turn it on, turn it off. All right, so that is effects mode. Hold these 2 buttons down and you get tuner mode. And the tuner mode will let you tune. You can press this to mute. The reason it doesn't mute by default is here is your tap tempo. You can also turn this to change your BPM, but you can dial it in. So press this to exit. There's another mode. I didn't mention this. It's called amp mode. You press these 2 together to go to amp mode. And now you are in the amp mode. You can switch channels between the amp, and then you can have access to the controls of the amp. Okay, that brings me to how do you edit an individual block or an individual preset. So let's pop back into effects mode. Let's say that's where you live. So one thing you can do is you can use the select encoder here, and you can, let's say I want to adjust, well, I think of something that you might adjust a lot is the amp block. Select it, press enter. Now you have access to all of the amp controls. So on the top you have the gain, you have the master volume, and the level, which is a pure output level. So gain and master are controls that are on an actual C30, and the rest of these controls on the bottom are also going to be controls that you find on an actual C30. Use the select encoder to swap, and now you can change, oh, I want less bass, I want more treble, let's do a little more high cut. Let's come back here, let's pull the gain down a little bit. Exit, done. If you want to go to the drive block, just navigate to the drive block, press enter. Here we've got our Sir Riot, because that's the channel we selected. Distortion level, tone, you can select the mode. One of the things that they've done in this is some of the models are consolidated, which I like. And then you've got the output level. Say you want to swap this for a different model, you can page back, and here you have access to the 77 different drive models that are currently, as of the filming of this, on the unit. So let's just say, okay, we want to go, let's change the Riot to a rat distortion. That's rat distortion, press enter. Now you've got it. You page over. Here are your controls for the rat. You can dial them in however you'd like. So you can do this with all of the different effects. Let's get out of here and let's look at what a reverb block looks like on the unit itself. This is editing everything on the unit, okay? Here you've got time, pre-delay, size, mix. Page down, you've got low cut, high cut, level. Encoder down. If you page back, you've got, here are all the reverbs. How many are there? Currently 79 different reverb algorithms. And they all sound amazingly good. So navigating the unit is really easy. Sean and I were doing these demos. Sean made this comment. Sean basically had this thing down in 5 minutes. And he made this comment, because Sean and I work with all these modelers together. Sean said, I have never learned a digital unit faster than I've learned this, which I think is high praise to Fractal, and it shows that they're listening and they're trying to make their units much more user-friendly. I honestly think this could be a topic for another video. The way this is laid out, the AM4, and then there's an effects version. I think it's the FM4. I could be wrong. I think these are a glimpse into the future of what Fractal is doing for their next like flagship modeling unit as far as user interface goes. And I think it's really good. I've got the editor pulled up here that connects to the AM4 via USB-C. And I want to go through maybe some more of the deep edit kind of stuff you can do. but also kind of show you the range of effects that you can get and some of my favorite features that are built into the editor. So what we've got here is our free AC30, AC36 top boost preset that you can grab over at Signal Theory. First thing I want to show you that this does, if you're familiar with the block library in Fractal, the block library just basically has presets of different effects that are in the block. So for example, I've got the drive block here. If I pull this library up, I've got my presets of these different drive models, the 808, the 1981 DRV, the FET boost, the full drive. All of this, by the way, you get with every preset. We will also have a Fractal block library. It's hard to say. It's a tongue twister. A free download available that gets you all of these things. So, you know, it shows up here in the library. If you go here to type, these are all the different drives that Fractal has. So there are 77 drive models. There's a ton, and they're all great. So, and then the block library is just, you know, different presets of those settings. And we've dialed them in just how we like them here at Signal Theory. So you can grab that if you'd like. But here on the edit page, you can see it's a really simple layout. You've got the 4 blocks, and here you can change the order of them if you want. So you can have your drive after the amp. Don't know why you would do that, but you can. And then you can get to all the parameters. So here is each channel. So you can see in this free download, the drive block has 4 channels. There's a King of Tone in channel A. There's an ODR1 in channel B. There's an OCD in C, and a fuzz in channel D. Now, what you're presented on the front screen with the drive block is, you know, the controls that are on the actual overdrive. So the King of Tone has drive, tone, and level for each side. They don't model the sides individually, but that's what you get. Now, you can go into the expert edit mode. If you are a person who loves to tweak things, this is for you. If you don't, just don't press this button. But if you do, here you go. Each drive block or each drive model gives you, here are the basic controls that are on the actual pedal. And then you can add EQ. You can like EQ individual overdrive. This lets you essentially mod your drive, which is, I love this about Fractal. Because you might have a Tube Screamer sound that you like, but it's a little too mid-heavy. Well, just pull some mids out. Push some highs, you know, if you want, and then you can double click on these to reset them. I love this. Some people say that this is like a bad thing about Fractal. It's too much option paralysis. Well, if you think that, just don't press the button. Or if you're in like the Asphyx 3, don't go in those other tabs. I think this is great. You can do things like change the diode types. You can change the diode quality. You know, you can put all these basically different chips into these different drive models. If you don't know what this stuff does, well, the first thing you can do is play with it and then just save beforehand. And if you get something you don't like, just, you know, don't save it and just recall the preset again. But, you know, you don't have to mess with this stuff, but I love it. You see a lot of this. Let's hop to the amp block. So the amp block is unique in the AM4 because it includes a cab in the amp block. So here you've got like your main 4 tabs of the amp block. So this is the Vox, the Class A, which is the Vox AC30 Brilliant amp model that we are using as the tone match model for our 2002 Korg era AC30. So here are the controls that are on the amp, and this is how we have them set. Now, there is an EQ that you can employ. This is coming after the amp block. And so we've done a little bit of post EQ. You can change all these different types of EQ. I love this. The 5-band passive is like a console style EQ. Now, the cabinet block is baked into the amp block. And here we're using a user cab. If you download this preset, you'll get this IR user cab, and it pulls up, you can pull up any of your IRs. You can see I've got some here in the user section. And then you've got a bunch of controls, low cuts, high cuts. You can have 2 cabs. If you have a second cab, you can, I love this blend knob. That's super handy. Very intuitive. And then there are, on the extras page, you get an output block so you can see. And that's really handy to have. You can have the amp, and then your amp level, which is the same control here, is available here. On the bigger units, they have preset leveling as a tool. Oh, they have it here too. So this is what preset leveling looks like. It's really good to have. It makes leveling all your presets out really easy, and then your sort of bass edge of breakup clean sound should come in where this line is. So that's how we make them. That's how Fractal recommends that you do it. So all of this stuff in the amp block. Now, the amp block has a lot more. So if you hit the expert edit thing, you've got all of this stuff, and this is what is like under the hood in all of the like the Axe-Fx 3 models. So here are your basic controls that mimic these basic controls. Or they are the same controls. Now, you have a post boost. So if you remember when we were talking about the hardware, if you press the amp button, it turns the boost on. This is that boost. You can change the level from 0 to 4 dB of output. It's just a pure output level boost. I think by default it is at 2. You can change the colors of the channels if you would like. If you have, you know, other amps and other channels that you want to switch to, you can change those colors. Here you've got that graphic EQ that we just looked at on this EQ page. So the expert edit sort of gives you a lot of those tabs all on one page. The ideal tab gives you options like input trim. You can turn the bright switch on and off. You can change bright cap values. You can change high treble, the cut, the fat on and off. These are parameters that exist in every Fractal amp block. Changing the bright cap value, it would be like going into your amp and changing some of the components that are in the amp to mod it, which is what many boutique amp builders do. They'll take a classic amp like a Plexi and change those things, or give you a mod to turn it on and off. Marshall even did that with their latest mod series. Then you've got a compressor section on the output. And this is, I use this a lot. I use this gain enhancer with like 0.5 as the value. It sort of adds a little bit of sweetness to the amp. You really can feel it under your fingers a little bit. But all of this is just on the expert tab. Now there's a preamp tab where you can come in and change the tube types. A really powerful section in the preamp tab is this input EQ. So if an amp is too boomy, you can low cut it. Or, you know, if it's too shrill, you can high cut it. The definition is like a tilt EQ that is just built in. Very, very powerful thing, and you can actually map this to different parameters. I'm not going to spend time in this video going through everything Fractal can do, like deep editing. It is really powerful, really deep, and we'd be here forever. I just want to show you that this stuff is all in the AM4. It's just kind of laid out a little differently than in Axe-Fx, FM3, FM9, if you're used to those. I think it's really intuitive. I like the way it's laid out in the other units as well. One thing to note here, on the expert tab, you get this output boost. So there's a post boost. There's also a preamp boost. You can basically select overdrive types. So you can have like an 808 type boost. So it's going to be, you don't have the controls of the 808, you just have the level. And then you can map this to a button, you know, any of these parameters to turn it on and off. And so you essentially have an overdrive in the amp section. I'm going to talk about this later when I talk about things that I wish were in the AM4. Like when you press the amp button, it turns on this post boost. I wish you could set it to turn on this input boost, but you can't, as far as I can tell. Anyway, moving on, all these power amp, you know, parameters. You can change power tubes if you want. You know, I've said this in lots of pieces of content about Fractal. I don't change these things unless I hear something I don't like. If the amp is too too dull in the low end and changing the bass, or maybe too muddy in the low end, changing the bass doesn't really do what I want, I'll come in here and low cut it to make it brighter and tighter. You know, I'll only make changes if I hear something I want to change. I don't come in here and just start changing stuff for the sake of it, although you certainly can. Especially when you get into a lot of these parameters, you know, it's hard to know what some of this stuff does. You can just start messing with stuff, but then you might get down the road and you're, you know, way far removed from the stock settings. The cabinet, though, the cabinet and the speaker section, these have some very powerful controls. So in the cabinet section, of course, you can select your cab, which is the same thing you can do here. You can select your cab. Many of these controls are mirrored in the expert edit section. You can set low cut, high cut. You can change the IR length. I think we often will set these to 1024 just to save some CPU. You can see that. But you can turn on a mic preamp here, and you can select the type, a transformer style, you know, tube, modern, a FET style, the quality, and then you've got a bass, middle, and treble. It's like, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, it's probably a little out of focus, but over here I've got the preamps that I use to mic amps when we capture them. And it's an API style preamp, and you've got an EQ. You can mimic that here if you'd like. Then you have a cab master EQ. Room and air controls are nice. It adds some nice stuff. If you go to the speaker section, you can change the impedance curve, which makes a big difference. It's like plugging your amp into different cabinets. The amp will change. The response of the amp will change depending on what kind of speaker it's plugged into. So you can mimic that here. You can make it match the Dynacab, or you can select any of these impedance curves. You see how that EQ curve is changing depending on what we're selecting. So this can make a big difference. Then you can add thump, resonance, all kinds of stuff here to further tweak and dial in your tone. All right, that's all under the hood in the expert edit. It's there if you want it. It's not there if you don't want it. Just don't click this button. All right. Now we've talked about reverbs and delays. I just want to show you. You go to the delay type. These are all the delays that you get. Lots of them. Go to the reverb types. These are all the reverbs that you get. But look at this. Included for free in all of these presets is all of this block library, reverbs that we've dialed in. When it comes to the physical controls and inputs and outputs you get on this, of course, you have your instrument input. One thing to note, it is a mono in, so this doesn't do like stereo amps, if that's something you're interested in. This is not the unit for you. So it's mono in. You've got a send and return. And these are TRS. So this is a stereo send and return. Then you've got stereo output. You've got a headphone out. You can plug in 2 expression pedals that you can use to control anything on here. You've got SPDIF, so your digital in and out. You've got MIDI in and out as well, so you can control this with MIDI or use it to MIDI control other things. You've got the USB connection that you connect to use the editor, updates, things like that. And then you've got the power, which is a standard like pedal power unit, 9 volt. It does require 1.5 amps. So it's a pretty power hungry unit, as you might imagine, given the screen, everything this thing does. So make sure that you're sending enough amperage to it with your, if you're putting this on a pedal board, which we are going to demonstrate in this video as well. So Fractal have built this thing to be able to use standalone if you'd like, and you can cover a lot of ground. But I think it really shines too with a couple other pedals to handle. Like you might notice all these presets that we're demoing don't have modulation in them. They don't have compression, that kind of thing. I want to do a demo or two of this unit on a pedal board. And this is where I think this thing really shines. You can get a lot of ground out of it on its own, but you know, here at Signal Theory and then at Worship Tutorials with the Sunday morning praise and worship stuff, we are very effects driven. So essentially you get 3 effects blocks. If you count the amp is not an effects block, you get 3 effects blocks. You can do a lot with those 4 channels across 3 effects blocks, but you can't have drive, modulation, reverb, and delay. What if you want a compressor as well? Okay, now you're getting into you know, territory that this isn't really designed to cover. So using this with external effects, I think is a really great way to go about it. And I'll talk more about this at the end when I talk about the pricing and who's this for and things like that. But the quality of like the delays and reverbs on this unit, I believe that this thing hangs with anything I've tried as far as like Eventide, Strymon, that kind of stuff. The Fractal level of effects for reverbs and delays is up there. Now I haven't spent a lot of time with Maris, you know, but this does absolutely crazy stuff as far as ethereal. It does all the basics really well, but it does the crazy stuff really well too. So you can kind of think of this as like, you know, it's going to house your amp modeling, which it's the best that exists. I think the Fractal and then the new Line 6 Agora amp modeling is the top that I've ever heard as far as digital modeling goes. Well, the only thing is Fractal, check this out. If you go in here and then page back, how many amp blocks do we have? It's going to take a while to scroll through them all. 247. Some of these are different channels of the same amp, but yeah, lots of amps in here, 247 of them that you can choose from. So, you know, this will handle your amp, and you can have 2 delay blocks. Say you've got your overdrives taken care of. You could swap the drive for a modulation. Think of this as like a Big Sky and a timeline and an amp modeler all in one thing. 'Cause I think it's as good as those pedals. You know, the user interface might be different. What you can do with it on the pedal itself, you know, is not quite as user specific for those types of effects, but you can get those kinds of sounds out of it for $700. I think $699 is where it's priced. If you think of it that way, this is going to be your amp and then take the place of a couple really high-end pedals on your pedal board. It's not like it's replacing a $150 pedal. It's replacing 2 or 3, like $300 to $500 pedals. And when you think of it that way, in this footprint, it's a great addition to a pedal board with like a few other pedal. Like if you have a compressor, a dual channel drive, and this, you're set. You can do a lot because you can cover amp, mod, delay, reverb here, compression and drives with your external pedals. You can have this also set to be boosting a little bit on the amp block. You're good to go. Let's look at all the different types of effects that you can get. So the kinds of effects that you can use in the AM4 is limited compared to like Axe FX3. So you can have 1 amp in here, and we've already got it. So our amp is in place. You can have two of these blocks can be drives. Here's drive 1. You could change, you could pull this in and you could make this drive 2. So now you've got 2 drives, so you could essentially stack your drives if you wanted to. Okay, let's go back here and let's say we can have a compressor block. We can have a delay block, but just one delay block. An enhancer, a filter, a flanger, and then within each of these, you've got all the different. Let's pull up the chorus just to demonstrate. So within the chorus block, then you've got all the different types of chorus. Some of these are like Japan CE2 is based on a CE2, like a Roland Boss. Tri-chorus is based on an actual chorus. Some of them are, 80s style digital stereo. This is your Dimension chorus here. So, and then of course you've got our block library files that you can pull in of the sounds that we've dialed in. So there are some that are notably missing, like there's no pitch in here. There's no, the multi-delay block, which is a really cool and powerful block, is not here. So you get a limited suite of effects compared to like Axe FX or FM3, FM9. They are the same algorithm, so they'll have the same sounds. It's just there's not as many of them. And of course, you can't put as many, there's only 1 delay, 1 reverb. You can't put 2 delays in here or 2 reverbs. So I hope that gives you a good idea of sort of what the unit has as far as capabilities and drawbacks. Finally, I want to talk about the things that I really love about this unit, the things that I wish it had that it doesn't have, maybe that it could in the future. And, who is this for? Should you buy this? So the things that I love about it, first of all, the sounds, the effects, the modeling that's built into this. I've said over and over again in content, Fractal has the best sounding amp modeling and effects modeling that exists. Now, most of those statements that I've made were prior to the release of the Line 6 Stadium. I do think that Stadium's Agora amp modeling rivals the Fractal amp modeling. I've done a lot of A/Bing back and forth of similar amp models, right? So like the Plexi or the Ecstasy, amps that are in both models that are in both units, the Deluxe Reverb, for example. I think that the Agora amp modeling sounds as good as the Fractal amp modeling. In some things I like more about the Agora, some things I like more about the Fractal modeling, but my personal opinion is that the two sit at the top. They're sort of neck and neck for me. The thing about the Fractal modeling when it comes to the amps, though, is there's like almost 300 of them. Versus the Agora amps, there's not that many. They'll add more, and so will Fractal. They're adding more all the time. Now, when it comes to the effects modeling, Fractal's got it. Like the reverbs, the delays are among the best digital emulations of reverbs and delays that I've ever heard. The things that you can do with the reverbs are crazy. Like they're insane sounds, and they're all really beautiful, really musical. I'm gonna upload another video, probably going through like that block library where I'm just gonna like just get lost in the crazy reverbs. It's really, really good. So the drive modeling, you know, honestly, I think the Line 6 drive modeling is just as good as the Fractal drive modeling. Fractal, of course, gives you more overdrives. And they're adding more all the time. Like the other day, they added the Greer Lightspeed. And I've started using that in my main live presets for Fractal pretty much right away. The Lightspeed sounds awesome. Another thing I love about this unit is how it can integrate into a pedal board with other effects. So we did a quick demonstration of that. We had just the worst looking pedal board as far as cable management goes. We had some problems with our cables cutting out, so we had to like swap some. It didn't look great, but you got the idea, right? I hope that the way that the amp models respond to the drives, things like that, sound really good. And you know, the way that it integrated with the other effects on the board was great. And then you can MIDI control this if you have like a switcher, something like that. And you can use this to MIDI control other things as well. So really, really cool addition to a pedal board. So if you're looking for something to put on your board that covers amp modeling plus other effects, I think I mentioned this earlier, you could think of this as an amp modeler that is among the best that you can possibly buy as far as the way that models sound, and could be almost any amp you can think of, and a Strymon Big Sky and a Strymon Timeline and some overdrives. I mean, you could think of it that way. And when you consider that, the price point of this unit is really attractive, because that's what it can replace. Whether you have pedals like that you want to get rid of or not is a different story, but this can do it. If you're looking to build out a pedal board that's sort of modular with an amp modeler in it, this is a really good option. I really like the form factor. I think they nailed, like, it's pretty big, but the spacing of the foot switches is great. The build on it is awesome. I don't know. It looks way better and feels way better in person than in photos and videos that I've seen. Like, this is all metal. Like, this thing is built. When I first saw it and saw what it could do, my first thought was like, this is like Fractal's version of the Pod Go. And I still think about it that way. I've said this to people. It's like, to me, this is less flexible and powerful than the Pod Go, because Pod Go can have more blocks in it, but on the flip side, it's more powerful than Pod Go because of all the channels that you have in here. So it depends on how you want to approach it. But from a build quality perspective, Pod Go is plastic. This thing is built like a tank. Fractal builds their stuff with knowing that professional touring musicians like Metallica are using it. So that's the level of build quality you're going to expect from a Fractal device. Very, very good. Okay, what don't I love about this unit? So first of all, after using the Stadium for a while now, I started touching the screen on this to like edit things. And I don't expect a unit at this price point. Well, I don't really know what to expect anymore from price point, but like, it would have been cool if it had this. I don't think that's on Fractal's radar for a unit like this. I do think they're going to put touch screens on their next gen modelers. I mentioned earlier, like, I wish there were more customizations around the buttons. I went through like the different button layouts and what they can do. It does allow you to get to everything and switch everything. Sometimes it requires a press and hold and then another press, you know. I wish you could map this. Like, what I would love is that you could, you know, this was your drive, right? Turns it on. If you long press, it switches to channel B. You can set that kind of mapping up on the larger units, the like the FM3, 9, AXFX3. You can't do that here. I wish there were control switches in here so that you could set a button to be a control switch to, for example, turn on the input boost on the amp. So mentioned earlier, the amp, say the amp is here. If you press this button, it turns on the output boost. I would like to turn on the input boost because that would act more like an overdrive into the amp. If you can do that, let me know in the comments. I couldn't find a way to do that. So I wish there was just a little more customization. Now, I do realize that in doing that, I mean, you should buy, if you want that, you should buy an FM3 because that's really what it's for. It's a deeper unit that has a lot more power under the hood. As far as what you can do with the buttons and stuff. Whether or not it's like more powerful from a DSP perspective, I really don't know. But you can certainly do more things with like an FM3 as far as blocks and effects and that kind of thing. You're not limited like you are here. So I wish, yeah, the button customization would be nice. Of course, I wish there were more blocks in it, but I get what this is and what it's meant to do. And given what it is and what it's meant to do, I think it does it really, really well. So finally, it kind of brings us to, who is this for? Is this something that you should consider if you're looking to buy a modeler? I've kind of been dancing around that topic the whole time. But like I said right up front, at the very beginning, if you have been wanting to try out Fractal's amp and effects modeling, this is a really, really good unit to do it with because you can use this in a variety of settings. You can put it on a pedal board. You could, you know, if you're traveling, just take this with you. It is pretty heavy though. Like it's got some weight to it, which makes it feel pretty premium, honestly. But, you know, this will allow you to, at a price point well under $1,000, I think it's $700, $699, something like that, to get into their ecosystem and start experiencing Fractal's amp and effects modeling. I think it's great if you're looking for, like I said, a piece of gear to put on a board that'll cover your amp modeling plus a few other things, which there are some, that is a very sacred category, I guess is a word for it. Like that's what the HX Stomp is. And the HX Stomp is priced similarly. It might be a little more, I'm not exactly sure, but the HX Stomp, this has 4 blocks. HX Stomp can have many more than that. So it's a little more powerful from that perspective. But again, here you've got the channels. So it just depends on how many different kinds of effects you want, whether or not you consider this to be a more flexible or powerful unit than like a Stomp. Because the Stomp would let you have an amp, a cab, a drive, a reverb, a delay, and a modulation, you know, all in the same preset. You know, so that is something that you would have to determine on your own. But and the HX Stomp, of course, is significantly smaller. But this gets you the Fractal modeling. So if that's something you want to try, this is a great unit to do it. I will say, as I mentioned earlier, this is a bit of a gateway drug into the Fractal universe because I could see a lot of players grabbing this to try it out and then immediately saying, I like this. I want more. I want an FM9. So be prepared. Be prepared for that to happen to you because the Fractal stuff is really good. I guess finally, you know, kind of talking about this versus Stomp, if you're considering, you know, a pedal like this to put on a board or just to have, you're going to be thinking about FM3, of course, because it's, you know, a few $100s more. It does quite a bit more. Would you get the 3 over the AM4? I think the FM3 is a much more powerful unit as far as what it can do. The FM3 is a very different form factor, so I don't see a lot of players putting FM3s on boards. You certainly could, but I don't think it's meant for that. This doesn't have any way to integrate with the FC controllers from Fractal. FM3 does, which opens the thing up a lot as far as how you can interact with it. This versus an HX Stomp, just talked about that. This thing versus like a Pod Go. That's an interesting one. Pod Go is going to be cheaper, I think, than this, and gives you more blocks than this. Pod Go's modeling versus the Fractal's modeling, I think that this wins. This beats it. So if sound quality is what you're looking for, I would go the AM4. Same thing with Stomp. The HX modeling versus the Fractal modeling and effects. The edge on tone goes to the Fractal units, I believe. Be really interesting when Line 6 releases the Stomp version of the Stadium. That versus this would be an interesting comparison. Love to do that when it comes out. Another thing I love about this unit is the really, really great factory presets. There's a couple presets called Brett's Rig, and I'm assuming that's Brett Kingman, who goes by Bergs. He is awesome. The Brett's Rig presets have like a different amp in each block to get different kinds of sounds from clean all the way to lead. And some really, really good sounding stuff. And then they've got amp presets based just around all these different amp models that are in this unit as well. And these stock presets sound great. Of course, we'd love for you to go check out our presets over at signaltheory.com as well. So I'll leave some links below where you can get one of these. If you live in the US, you buy direct from Fractal. If you're in Europe, I believe it's sold through G66. So really great unit. Fractal, I'm excited to see what is in store for the future. I guess this is a different, I don't want to go down this tangent too long, but I do think this unit and the effects version of this unit are giving us a glimpse into the next gen of what Fractal is doing for a flagship modeler. They've been talking about it a little bit. But you know, the streamlined user interface. And I think if I were just jumping in and grabbed one of these versus like an FM3, this would be an easier unit for me to learn and use than the FM3 would be. So I think that's cool. I like the design language of this unit is very different than the FM3, FM9, Axfx 3. So I think we're getting a glimpse into the future of Fractal units, maybe. I could be completely wrong on that one, but I really like this one. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.